Hello, everybody. This is a really special opportunity for us to be able to interview the Assistant Dean of Admissions at Berklee College of Music, Mrs. Natara Gray. Mrs. Gray, thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure to have you.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
So I think the first question that I want to ask, it's a pretty significant expenditure of resources for you guys to have come all the way down from Boston down to the Pullum Center. And a couple weeks ago, just so everybody online knows what kind of went down, we had yourself, the Dean of Admissions, and the Head of Global
Initiatives,
thank you, came down to Berklee to speak with our students. And that's a lot. That's a high-profile crowd. What makes it worth the expenditures for you guys to come all the way down here? What makes it worth it for you at Berklee?
Of course, that's a great question. So, as you may know, my role at Berklee is inaugural, and I get to work at the intersect of diversity, equity, inclusion, and admissions. And when we think through opportunities for underrepresented, underserved populations, we often see that they really need someone to show up and to be in the space and to meet them where they are. Mm-hmm. And so providing opportunities like this for us is small in terms of the dollar amount and big in terms of the outcome and the impact that it has. And so we really want to make it a conscious effort to be in spaces with folks who are doing really great work to support our underrepresented communities so that they know that they have a pillar of support, that they know that they have allies, that they can build a community, and that they belong at Berklee in a way that comes directly from us. It's a little different than to see us, through a screen, or it's even more challenging to try to think through the opportunity of putting, we had 30 of them or so in a room, and 30 to 40 of them in a room, and how do you get 30 to 40 students who may identify as underrepresented, underserved, low income, right, all the different intersectionality that they have, how do you get them all the way to Boston? Yes. So we bring Boston to them and give them the opportunity to see, from our mouths and use our ears to hear all the amazing talent that they have worked so hard to produce and to showcase.
Sure. So is this a frequent thing for you guys? Do you often go down to centers across the United States, maybe globally?
Yeah, so this is, it's yes and no. So under my kind of leadership with regards to the work that I'm doing, I'm really putting into fruition this idea of really being present in community-based organizations and nonprofits in a way that I know we haven't really been able to do before because my role didn't exist. And so thinking strategically outside of the box to say, hey, where are the students that we need to reach? And we all know they're not under rocks. They're everywhere doing amazing work, and you just have to put a little bit of effort into finding them and into searching them out. And so my thought process is really, alongside the rest of our team, they're all in support of and backing me in this initiative and in the effort. And so we're traveling, globally to talk to folks from different centers like yours who are doing this great work. And of course, the partnership with City Music is always something that, we think about too, and saying like, oh my gosh, is there a City Music site in the area that we can kind of tie into the recruitment opportunities? So making it a very purposeful interaction, a very purposeful event is something that's important to us. So we are putting purpose behind our, opportunities to engage, and we're flying out into these different spaces. And sometimes we bring the whole kit and caboodle. You all got the dean and me and Jason. You got the whole deal. And sometimes it's only one of us or two of us, but we're trying to be present where people are.
Awesome. And so that kind of physical presence is really an important part of your strategy to attract more underrepresented populations.
Yeah. I want them to know that we really believe in them.
Right.
And I think that's sometimes hard to be able to be really felt when you're through a screen or, through an email. You can't really see the facial expressions or the mannerisms or, I remember being here in this space and, even the facial expressions that we were making, like just listening to the students, and then you could see their reactions to what we were saying. And, it's a different experience. So it also encouraged many of them to apply. So there's that piece of it, right? Where they're like, oh my gosh, you believed in me enough to come. Yes, I want to go to Berklee. Yeah. So that's the type of, interaction and relationship building and trust that we're looking to build. Right.
And I think we can all relate to a lack of trust building that happens through screen these days.
Yeah.
But that's so exciting because we did have a lot of students that eventually applied, and obviously we are super excited to announce that we also had a number of students for the moment get admitted, and that we are beyond psyched for that. That is a huge population of people that we're hopefully sending to Berklee. Obviously, we can't speak on behalf of the students and what their decision is going to be, but could you talk a little bit about what kind of education that some of these kids are going to have the opportunity to pursue once they get out to Boston?
Yeah, of course. We recognize that this decision is very personal, for one, right? That's what's very important. There are so many factors that go into where you decide to go to school, and we recognize that we may be one of many options as well. Right. But I think, with Berklee, we provide a unique opportunity for them to study in a way that makes them feel like them. We are not only classical, we're contemporary. If there isn't something that you want to do, you can build it. So we provide a lot of kind of autonomy in that space. Students who are studying with us, in their first year or two are really even thinking through, like, do I want to study abroad? Do I want to study here on campus? What type of musicality do I want to continue to learn? What genre is of interest for me? Eventually, students will be able to be inside of ensembles and perform on a regular basis. And, we want to teach them business, right? What is the background of a contract? What does it look like to go through those particular things? So they'll engage in those types of conversations in their classroom. We also want them to learn the different areas of jazz and how we were founded and that type of stuff. So they'll learn about those things. And of course, there's also the education around understanding music holistically, right? Do they need to learn how to read better, how to read music, right? Do they need to learn more about, improvisation or whatever it may be? So we kind of put them through a lot of rigorous coursework when they're at Berklee, which is why we always want to kind of engage with them as early as possible to make sure that they're prepared and set up for success once they matriculate into the campus and the institution. But they'll have an opportunity to engage with tons of students, and a lot of what we hear as far as outcomes is really around network and community building. Students learn obviously inside the classroom by tons of faculty who have actually been in the field too, which is huge at Berklee, right? So the faculty members that they're learning from aren't only, folks who have gone out and studied it, but they've also done it. And so, that real life kind of experience is something that can't always be taught in a book. So it's always important, to recognize that they're learning that too, and faculty are sharing that. And they're going to create some real long-lasting relationships with our faculty as well. We've got faculty who stay after class to engage with students or show up at their events or hire them to perform at certain spaces, so it's a really diverse and inclusive opportunity for students, but it also allows them to continue working and building their brand while they're going through school. So it's a real unique opportunity. I'll get a lot of students who will ask, well, I want to do this right now. Why should I go to school? Why even pursue an education? I'm building this, or I'm making these beats, or I'm songwriting here and people are buying these things. Why do this? And I think, for me, I always tell them that for the important piece of it is really the fact that some of this stuff can't be done in a vacuum. You really have to build this network of community around you to be able to know who you can go to and who you can trust and who you can count on. And that's not something that you can get just kind of being out on your own. You really have to have this kind of community that has been built in this network that exists. And Berklee will provide that. And so I'm like, hey, you're sacrificing a couple of years. You're going to walk away with a degree. You're going to walk away with, a ton of people who are by your side and supportive of you, and a network and a community. And so it's worth it, in the long end in terms of what it's going to do for them.
Right. Yeah. So I think a question that I have though was obviously your role is in DEI as in diversity, equity, and inclusion as in admissions. And so what resources exist for the students that you get through the door, get to Berklee? What resources exist to make sure they get through their degree?
Yeah, that's huge. So, there are a few things that I always like to highlight on our campus. One of them is our, student affairs teams. We've got tons of people who are there to help support them and navigate the journey. It is complex, it is difficult. It's a culture that they're learning, right? Not just the culture of Berklee, but also going to Boston for the first time for many of them. What is it like to wear a parka for 8 months out of the year,
exactly.
Versus
the cold weather training.
Exactly. Yeah. So, there's a lot of there's a huge culture shock, and it's very different. And so we have to make sure we have support systems in place. One of those initiatives is our BSI, our Black Student Initiative. There's an entire program that's dedicated to helping them make sure that they can continue to be supported, and help guide them through, their entire first year, and just making sure that they feel, successful and ready, and they kind of enter with an immediate cohort of family, a family, right? This community through that particular program, and there are other faculty members who will work alongside the program director in that space as well, and so that's a beautiful resource for a lot of our students, in particular students of color. And we also have our career services team, which is amazing. They really start working with students in the beginning and are an option for students to really help them understand and know what a degree with Berklee can get them in terms of lucrative success. I know we know a lot of families, that are like, wait a minute, what are you going to do with a degree in music? How is that going to support you financially in the long term? And so that particular office really hones in on them and makes sure that they know all the different areas in which they can work in, and helps them prepare for, different internships and things like that. They'll also help them with job security. We hire a ton of students on campus, so student employment runs that office as well, and we offer both like federal work study opportunities, but also other students, that might be international or domestic, that don't necessarily have access to federal work study will have opportunities to also gain funding, which doesn't always happen at every school too, so that's a great resource as well. And then of course there's just a plethora of people like outside of my role, but also, regarding other faculty and staff members who are really working hard. Our diversity and equity team, that's the actual part of the school itself. That's unrelated to kind of the work that I do in admissions, but we have a great relationship and bond. Obviously that is a resource as well, because they're doing great work and putting on great events on a regular basis for students to become, a part of the community and to learn about different pieces and opportunities and, celebrations that are happening on campus. So there's a lot of people there that want to make sure that underrepresented, underserved students really succeed, and so we're trying to build those relationships and pass the baton appropriately, so that when they get there, everyone kind of knows who they are and how they can engage and how they can reach people without kind of walking in and wondering what's happening with no information. So,
how important is building community for success through college?
Yeah, it's huge. I'd honestly say, there are a lot of students who are introverts. There are a lot of people who are extroverts, right? Like it's whatever fits your fancy is what's important. You don't have to be an extrovert to build community, and I think it's huge and important to recognize that. But finding like your posse, your tribe, your people is huge, because there are going to be challenging times. College, no matter where you go, is not an easy opportunity, right? It's not an easy process. It is sometimes 4 or 5 or 6 long years of intensive kind of commitment and dedication and hard work and sleepless nights and tears and all that good stuff. And I think that it really requires you to make sure that you have support systems around you that can help build you up when you feel like you're falling down. And then also for you to be able to give the same back to someone that you care about, right? Because there's going to be times where you're feeling on a really high, and there's going to be someone around you that needs you to help pull them up. And so you want to be able to build that community so that you can do both. And from an educational standpoint, like there's also times where like maybe you didn't understand a certain piece of something that came, from a faculty member or from a certain class, and you can go to that particular person and be like, hey, here's your strong suit, here's my strong suit, let's work together to be successful. So I think those are reasons why as well, and I think student organizations provide great opportunity in that space as well, and we have several obviously on campus of those for students to kind of get involved with from an extracurricular standpoint, because we know that a lot of kind of what happens with the student and the way that they're involved doesn't only happen inside of the classroom, right? It's outside of the classroom. It's what they're doing outside of the school in and of itself sometimes too. Some of them are going to have to work or, do the things that they have to do in order to continue to provide for themselves while they're on campus. So providing all of those types of opportunities are very important to us, and I would say building like your posse is key and important for success.
Yeah. And so if we back up a little bit from that from the admission cycle and like actually getting from senior to college, we also are hoping. We have one student who filled out the admissions to do your flying program as a freshman. I think she confirmed that today, so we're really excited. But kind of on that topic, what advice do you have for a budding high school freshman or sophomore who's thinking, Berklee might be cool, especially seeing, these 4 students go possibly off to Berklee, or at least get admitted, and we already have a student at Berklee right now. What advice do you have for them to make sure that they, can succeed if that's the path you choose to go on?
Yeah, that is a great question. I think I would start with saying make connection. I think oftentimes the more intersectionality you have, the more underserved you might be, or oppressed or marginalized you are as a human. It can create a challenge to know whether or not it's the right thing to do to reach out. Do I reach out to the assistant dean? Do I reach out to the dean? Do I reach out to the assistant director? Do I contact this particular person? I don't want to be a hindrance. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to be a challenge. And I always say, your ability to use my business card is my return on investment. Right? I didn't buy them. I didn't buy them for them to sit in somebody's pocket. I want you to use it. I want to talk to you. And so my first suggestion would be to make that contact, to reach out and do the things that your peers are doing. They are asking questions. They want to know more. They want to be engaged and build that relationship, because you will be remembered. So I think that's the first piece. I think the second piece is to do your research. Make sure that you know about the school that you're looking to attend. If Berklee is where it is and that's where you want to be, then you should know what programs we have. You should know what we're offering. You should know, what it looks like to be a part of an audition or an interview. And if you don't know, then you need to ask, right? Outreach and say, hey, I saw that auditions and interviews are a part of a mandate for your application process. What does that look like? What should I be prepared for? Engaging in that particular, way will help the students to kind of know what it is that we're looking for and what we're, encouraging them to do. I'd also say, apply to as many opportunities as you can. We have summer programs, right? So there's opportunities for that, but also the fly-in program is a great opportunity too. You're talking about 9th and 10th graders that have the opportunity to come and visit, for a couple of days and get an understanding of all that we have to offer. And it's free, right? We're paying for it in its entirety for them to do that. So the more opportunities that you can throw yourself into, to do it, make it happen. And I think the other suggestion I would say is believe in yourself enough to be able to do it. Have that self-belief. I think oftentimes we use the word self-doubt more than we use self-belief, because we don't often think that it exists. And we are usually hindered by imposter syndrome, which is the idea that everyone else might be better than me, or I don't know if I deserve the opportunity. And I think that the challenge with that is that you tell yourself no before anybody else can. So give other people the opportunity to tell you no, and then don't take no for an answer, right? So go in and strive and drive and do the things that you need to do to make yourself visible to people. And then know that if you receive that seat, right? If you get admission to a place like Berklee, that is something that you acquired. You did that work. You deserved it. Nobody gave that seat to you. Nobody gave you anything. And you attained it on your own merit and your own accord. So I think that those are some of the suggestions that I would provide for students who are starting, at that age. It's never too young. I think that's the other thing that a lot of people kind of have the misconception of, where they're like, well, I'll start thinking about college in junior year. Nope. Even if it's not a decision that you're going to make, I think there's options there, right? You could attend, you could not attend, you could choose Berklee, you could not choose Berklee. But I think knowing and having the information is very vital and very important. And then engage in your community. Places like yourself, other centers and other opportunities. Community-based and nonprofits are doing such amazing work around the globe, right, to help provide opportunities for students. And if you're able to get yourself into one of these spaces to be able to learn and grow alongside people who are kind of doing this work, then I think that's another option to help them grow, because they're learning education that helps them prepare for a place like Berklee. And so I appreciate that as well.
Thank you so much for that advice. We're hoping to send even more students your way in the coming years.
I can't wait.
We are so excited to hopefully send the 4 students that got admitted over to you guys. And Mrs. Gray, thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for your work in taking the time to come down here and making it happen for 4 really awesome students. And we're so excited that they're getting this opportunity. So thank you to you and the rest of your team.